This is Brian from Bentley Roofing.
Okay. So I'll kind of start again. When we talk about commercial roofing applications and what we can do, there's so many options out there. It can get confusing, but they're not appropriate for all applications. So what we'll do is when we look at the roof today, we'll try to start eliminating as much of those options as possible, and then we'll leave us with just a handful of things that might work. So if we start talking about the most cost-effective solutions first, which are the coating systems, you have three major types. You've got acrylic, you've got elastomeric, and you have silicone. Because of the ponding water issues we have on the roof, meaning it's not draining all the water every time it rains, we can eliminate the acrylic and the elastomeric right off the bat. And that's going to leave us with a silicone solution. So from there, we take a look at what was done prior to. And we have we have some Alumicoat going on around the perimeter and around some of the accessories. Other areas of the roof don't have that. That's going to further narrow down our options. So there's really only one or two specific silicone options that we would be able to use. Now, that being said, even though that would be by far and away the most cost-effective solution, you're going to have to explore that with your insurance carrier as well, and make sure that that isn't going to be an issue with them, maintaining your policy moving forward. Most of the time, it is not. But we don't want you to get caught in the rare exception that Citizens isn't going to allow it. And Citizens underwriters are weird because they look at a lot of different factors. They look at what's on here now, they look at the age of the building, and they look at its location. And those are what they use to determine whether or not they'll allow essentially coatings. In Dade County, they tend to have no issues with them. My experiences in Palm Beach County, particularly on residential applications, they're a little more picky. So we can give that to you as an option, but it's something, again, you're going to want to explore with your carrier before you pull the trigger on that. The next thing that we can do in terms of, again, being cost effective is we're pretty certain, from my understanding, that there's only one roof on here now.
Mm-hmm. We cut it open last week.
Okay.
And there's some board, like
a
particle
perlite
board that sort of rotted away.
Okay, is it kind of brown?
Yeah.
Okay.
And underneath, I'll show you a picture, there's cement slabs.
Okay.
So there's cement, that little board stuff, and then tar.
Okay. I'll check the deck before I leave today, but my assumption, just knowing the area, is that you would have your deck, whatever that might be. That could be wood, metal, concrete. We'll check, and then you'd have a lightweight concrete, which is what they used back in the day to kind of pitch these.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'd have a perlite board, and then you'd have your roofing layers on top of that. And that would be congruent with what I see, all around the area. But I'll take a look at those photos and we'll verify that. But given that there only is one roof on here, we have the option to do what's called a roof recovery system. Now, what that is that allows us to put another roof directly on top.
Okay.
If we can get away with that, I highly recommend it.
Okay.
Because it saves a ton of money, particularly if we are dealing with a lightweight concrete. Because typically in a roof quote, we're going to assume that lightweight concrete is salvageable.
Mm-hmm.
Almost always it is, but you run the risk of it not being salvageable.
Mm.
Now, to do a roof recovery system in Dade County, you have to have a moisture survey first. Mm-hmm. Okay, and there's two parts to that moisture survey. They do thermal and Trimex readings, and then before you actually get the permit, a third-party engineer has to come and do core samples of the roof.
Okay.
I will do the thermal imaging and the Trimex readings today.
Okay.
So we'll at least know if that's an option.
Okay.
If it starts failing everywhere, then we don't even have to waste time, it's spending the money on an engineer when in all likelihood, it's not going to pass the moisture survey.
Okay. Would the fact that it rained all day yesterday play into it?
Yeah, and I'll take that into consideration. Also, depending on your timeline, when you're right by the coast, depending on how the numbers work out, if we could defer the project till next winter, then the likelihood of passing the moisture survey is a lot higher. So
right.
if we can't get it to pass today or right now, but the budget is such that you really would prefer to lean towards a recovery instead of a full roof replacement, what we can do is, again, we can just defer the project, come back again in the wintertime, around October, November, reassess it. Okay. And then oftentimes we can get a roof that failed in the summer to pass in the winter, and then now the recovery is back on the table. So your final option, of course, is a replacement, and that would involve removing everything down to the substrate, down to the deck, and then starting over. And we essentially can pick our system. We can do whatever we want to do. At that point, it's you give me a budget, you give me a number, and I'll design something around that.
Okay.
When we do a roof recovery or a roof replacement, the two systems that you're going to hear most often, okay, are going to be a traditional modified system, which is sometimes referred to as a built-up roof system. That is exactly what's on here today. And we can just re-engineer this existing system, maybe get it to drain a little bit better, but it's going to be the same general product.
Talk asphalt.
That's asphalt.
Asphalt, yeah.
That's asphalt, yes. The second way that we can do it, and it's becoming a lot more popular, is a product called TPO, or you might hear that referred to as a single-ply system. Again, a great system. However, your proximity to the salt water is going to very much limit the type of product and the manufacturer that we can use for that system. Ideally, you don't want to install most TPO membranes within 5,000 feet or 1 mile of salt water. And, we're right on it. So, TPO, while it might be slightly cheaper up front, may not give you the longevity that you're looking for.
Okay.
Furthermore, I'm going to test the slope of the deck today. It is a requirement in Dade County that if you do TPO, you have to taper the deck so that you don't have ponding water.
Wow.
Once we add in the tapered insulation cost, TPO, even though it's more of the value proposition now, may actually end up being more expensive. So we could be looking at a more expensive solution that doesn't last as long. And if we run into that, then it's a no-brainer. You don't do it. A lot of companies are going to prefer to install TPO, even though that may not be the best thing for you, because of the ease of installation and because we're on a main road with parking and walking around both sides. It makes doing a traditional asphalt roof difficult, because you have to, for safety reasons, we have to rope off the sidewalk and we have to block off this whole area, because if the wind, if it blows like it is today and it's blowing that hot tar, it's going to burn people underneath.
And cars.
Yes. So I'm not as worried about the cars as the people, but yeah, we have to be very cognizant of that. That's a much more logistically challenging roof. That being said, it still may be the better solution. So these are all things that we can talk about. These are all things that we can kind of explore. But for today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a bunch of photographs. I'm going to use, I don't know if you're doing video or just audio. Video. I'm going to use this tool to check the seams to make sure we don't have any seam failure. Then I'm going to use this thermal camera to identify any areas in the membrane that look like they have moisture beneath it. I'm going to discount the areas that have standing water. Once I do that, I'm then going to use this tool, which is a very sophisticated piece of equipment. It's called a trimix meter. This will actually detect the level of moisture underneath the membrane. So this will kind of be our precursor to the official moisture survey if we decide we want to go with a roof recovery or a roof coating. And we'll put some options together. We can talk about, you know, rough budgeting numbers. We'll let you guys kind of come to a decision as to, you know, what you want to proceed with, and then I'll start building some estimates based on that. I don't want to overwhelm you by giving you 6 or 7 different estimates, because that'll just get confusing. So maybe what we'll do is we'll kind of settle on a path, and then we'll maybe put 2 or 3 estimates together on whatever that path would be, whether that be a coating, a recovery, or a replacement.
Okay.
Does that sound like a pretty decent plan?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. So I do a lot of third-party building consulting, where I'm hired not to do the roof, only to evaluate condition, and then write a scope for other companies to bid off of. Like I could go out, I go to Nashville all the time. I'm in Alabama. I'm all over the place doing these things. So that's what we're going to kind of start with that, and then we'll get our conditions, and then we can kind of decide what works best.
What we're eligible for, so to speak. Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you.